Yeah, I can take it. Okay. Shalom, Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua Baruch. To all the Akim out there, Yahweh Shemar Alatham Bahashim Yahushua. To all the Akwakian. This is the Baltimore Sabbath Service. Today is, what is that? I'm about to say, it's March 30th, 2024. And we're going to get right into it. Now, we're in the book of Chronicles. Now, the reason why I like this book, I mean, every book is great, but the reason what I like about this book is that it actually goes through the chronology of the genealogies at the start of it. Now, this is what I would ask, all the, Christians out there that believe that it's spiritual Israel. Why would the Most High inspire the writers to take the time to write all these genealogies out? Okay, like why would he inspire that for them to write all the genealogies? If it's spiritual Israel, it really shouldn't matter. But obviously it does matter because even in other cultures, bloodlines matter. You got the king, the England, the people of England or Britain, or however you want to say it, bloodlines matter for that dynasty or that kingdom. Well, it's the same thing with the kingdom of the Most High. When it comes to the sons of Israel, when it comes to the children of Israel, the genealogy of the bloodline does matter. It's not spiritual Israel. Because you have to be the sons of the promise. And we know that Abraham had more than one son. And what was the one son? Ishmael was not the son of a child of promise. It was Isaac. And then Isaac had, Jacob and Esau. And Esau was not the child of promise. It was Jacob. So it does matter, and it depends on who the Most High chooses and who he separates. All right? And on the other hand, though, we do want to emphasize, just because you're of Israel, except you keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, because as we can see, we saw in Kings, the Most High did put away Israel. So you got to be following the guidelines and the rules. Because in Yahushua's time, people thought that their bloodline was going to get them into the kingdom. And that was not true. The scribes and Pharisees thought, because my bloodline, I get to slide right in the kingdom. Well, that's not true as well. So you have to be of the bloodline, and you have to be keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. So we're going to go through here. We're in First Chronicles. We're going to be reading in the Hebrew first one, First Chronicles 2. And we're going to be reading 14 through 20 in the Hebrew, and then we'll get it in the English.
I'll tell you. Hey, Salaki, just to add on too, it's important to note that the Most High, if you look at these genealogies, these are from the fathers. It seems like a basic concept, but it's not. Like, we look at the Jewish man, and you look at some of these fake camps, these Christian organizations, they make everything from the mother. These genealogies come from the father, and it's passed down from the father to son, vice versa. It's not maternal, it's paternal. You understand? So if I could, we're going to be starting off with First Chronicles chapter 2 and verse 14. Within the Harabayaya, Radia, Hakamayashia, verse 15. Atazam, Hashashia, Dabayad, Hashaba'aya, verse 16. Wa Akayakyaham, Tazarawayaham, it's like Tazarawayaham, Ra'abayagya, Wabanya, Tazarawaya, Abashya, Wiya Wa'a, Wa'isha, Al, Shalasha, verse 17. Wa'abayag, Yalada, Aimasha'a, Wa'abya, Aimasha'a, Yathar, Hayashamai, Hayashamai, Alia,
Shema Aliyah.
Hayashama Aliyah, verse 18. Wakala, Bun, Katazarwan, Hawaliyah, Aizarabah, Asha, Wa'a, Yarayaiwa, Wa'ala, Baniyah, Yashar, Wishawabah, Wa'aradwa, verse 19. With the Ma, Aizarabah, Wa'akwak, the Wa, Kala, Aparad, with the La, Lawa, Kawar, verse 20. Or Kawar, Hawaliyah, a warrior, a warrior, Hawaliyah, Batazal, Allah. The what? That's it.
All right, we're going to go through these names in the English, and then we'll go to the next part. We're going to go through these names. This is the book of Chronicles, 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 14. Nathaniel the fourth, Radai the fifth, verse 15. Ozem the sixth, David the seventh, verse 16. Whose sisters were Zeruiah and Abigail, and the sons of Zeruiah, Abishai and Joab, and Asherah, 3. Now, you know the sons of Zeruiah, I just want to point out, you know, they were Abishai and Joab, you know, those were some of David's top generals in the army. Well, those were also David's nephews. You know, sometimes the Bible, they won't just point out and say, well, that's the niece, that's the nephew. But when you do some little bit of research, you're like, oh, okay. So David's next, so it's kind of like a lot of family in those armies of Israel as well. Verse 17. And Abigail bare Amasa, and the father of Amasa was Jether, the Ishmaelite. Verse 18. And Caleb, the son of Hezron, begot children of Azubah, his wife, and Jera'oth. Her sons are these, Jesher, and Shoabab, and Arda. Verse 19. And when Azubah was dead, Caleb took unto him Ephrath, which bare him Hur. And Hur begot Uriah, and Uriah begot Bazalel. That's it. Sorry. Okay, we're going to now be reading 1 Chronicles chapter 2. We're going to be reading 21 through 27.
I'll take it. 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 21. Wa'akar, Ba'ah, Katazarwan, Al, Ba, Makayar, Abia, Gala'ai, Wahawa'a, Lakwakar, Wahawa'a, Bun, Shashia, Shana, with Allah, Lawa, Shagawa, verse 22. Washagawa, Hawaliyad, Ya'ayar, Wiyahaya, Lawa, Aisharya, Washalawash, Ariyam, Ba'aratazar, Agalayad, verse 23. Wayakwak, Washabor, Wa'arum, Kawa, Ya'ayar, Ma'atham, Wana, Wa'a, Banafya, Banafya, Shashia, Ayar, Kal, Allah, Wanya, Makayar, Abia, Dela'ai, verse 24, Wa'akar, Mawa, Katazarwan, Wakala, Aparatha, Wa'asha, Katazarwan, Abiyah, with the lie, Lawa, Ashakarwan, Abiyah, the Kwawai, verse 25, Wayahayah, Bunya, Yerakama, sorry, Yerakam Allah, the one, Bakawar, Katazarwan, Habakawar, Ram, Wabuwana, Wa'aran, Wa'atazam, Akaya, verse 26, with the Haya, Asha, Akara, Layrakam Allah, Washama, Aitara, Haya'a, Awanum, verse 27, Wayahayawa, Bunya, Ram, Bakawar, Yerakam Allah, Ma'itaza, Wayamyan, Wa'akwar, 27, right?
Come.
That's it.
All right, now we're going to be reading First Chronicles. We're in chapter 2, 21 through 27. I'm going to read that in the English. First Chronicles chapter 2, verse 21. And afterwards, Hezron went in to the daughter of Machir, the father of Gilead, whom he married when he was 64 years old. And she bare him Segub. Verse 22, and Segub begot Jair, who had 20 cities in the land of Gilead. Verse 23, and he took Gezer, and Amram, the towns of Jair, from them with Kenath, the towns thereof, even 80 cities. All these belong to the sons of Machir, the father of Gilead. Verse 24, and after that Hezron was dead in Caleb-Rephathah. Then Abiah, Hezron's wife, bare him Asher, the father of Tekoa. Verse 25, and the sons of Jeremiah, the firstborn of Hezron, were Ram, the firstborn, and Bunah, and Oren, and Ozem, and Ahijah. Verse 26, and Jeremiah had also another wife, whose name was Atara. She was the mother of Onan. And the sons of Ram, the firstborn, were Jeremiah, were Maaz, and Jamin, and Eker. And that's it. I also want to point out something too. I'm not saying it here, but if you notice another thing in scripture too, they will sell you the genealogies of Israel. But I don't know, well, I'm sure everybody's already noticed this. But the Most High will also show you the genealogies of your enemies. To show the separation, to show that the bloodlines should not mix. If you notice, and especially in Genesis, he'll show the genealogies of certain heathen nations as well. Well, if there was spiritual Israel, that shouldn't matter, right? Because we're all to be in one good melting pot.
Right.
But the Most High is preserving them to show that should also be separate. So I just want to also point that out. So bloodlines were very important biblically. And they're obviously, if they're important then, they're important to the Most High now.
It's right? Like, just to add on too, what you're saying is heavy because last week we actually read the genealogy of Esau. And you seen that Taman was one of the sons of Esau. So you go to Obadiah and say, you might even end up Taman, you understand? So like, when you get these genealogies, you actually know the tribes, because they don't always just say Esau, and don't always just say Israel. It's going to break it down to the particular tribe. You see what I'm saying? So these genealogies are very important.
We're going now search of 1 Chronicles 2, and we're reading verses 28 through 34.
1 Chronicles 2, chapter 20, it's like it. 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 28. Where Yahayawa, Bunya, Awanum, Shumya, where Yadai, where Bunya, Shumya, Nadab, where Abayashwa, where Abayashua, verse 29. Where Shum, Ashab, Abayashua, Abiyahaya, Abiyaha, it's like it. Abiyahaya, Abiyaha, it's like it. Abiyahaya, Abiyahaya. With a lie, the wa, Akabani, wa, Mawalayad, verse 30. Wabanya, Nadab, Salad, Wapayam, Wayama, Salad, La'a, Banyam, verse 31. Wabanya, Apayam, Yeshaya, Wabanya, Yeshaya, Shashan, Wabanya, Shashan, Akolia, verse 32. Wabanya, Yadai, Akiyah, Shumya, Yathar, Wayawanath, Wayawanathan, Wayama, Yathar, La'a, Wanyam, verse 33. Wabanya, Yawanathan, Palak, was Azar, Allah, Hayawa, Banya, Yarakam Allah, verse 34. Wala'ah, Hayab, Lashashan, Banyam, Kaya, Banawa, Walashashan, Aibad, Batazaria, Washamwa, Yarakai. What's that big about?
34.
That's it.
All right, we're now going to be reading, we're in 1 Chronicles chapter 2, and we're in verses 28 through 34. Also want to add too about genealogies as well. You got to also remember, anciently, I think, I won't say I'll speak for me, but a lot of us, we have this technology, we take it for granted, we go get a book, we got our phones. But you gotta remember, anciently, they weren't going buying books and all that. They had to say these genealogies. You gotta think of the memory too. And this is how they told the stories. This is how the children found out who they were. Is that the patriarch, the father, the grandfather would tell them, they would tell them these genealogies. So you gotta think, when they're sitting down and they're teaching their children about the Most High, and they're teaching them this, and this is by memory. And they're like, well, who am I? That's come, sir. They did, but you got to think, you got to think nowadays, we have trades. I'm a talk about as an electrician, I'm a teacher. Anciently, they had scribes. You had to be, that was within the family. Well, not every family was scribes. You didn't, now there were certain families. That's what the father did. So he would sit down and teach their son, this is our trade. We write. But a lot of families didn't. So you had to say, and you had to verbally, orally, say things. And you gotta remember that they would remember these names.
So if I can add too, it is the same like today, right? If you sit down, say you got your grandparents or something like that, they such and such and such and such as cousin. And this is his brother, so this is his sister right here. And it makes sense because you know who everyone is. You just putting everybody in a certain category. You know, and that's what that was. That was the oral history that we used to get back in the day.
It's like if I could add two, like, and it's always that person in the family that knows about everything. That knows everything. And you know, your grandmother's father's brother used to live down the street here, and they used to sell the muffins. And Uncle Jack down there, you know, and
you got to fix everything.
Yeah, you know, that knows everything. Like, I ain't know all that, you know. So, but you got to think this is like us. This is the same thing back then, and they knew all the names, and this is how they would teach the children who they were, which goes back to why identity is important. You know what I'm saying? And that's when, you know, when we were taken from the land and from our land because of what our sins. This is another thing that was lost. You know, and we're good that we're coming back to it.
It's like, if I could just one more thing, my grandma used to always tell me, yeah, we gotta tell y'all that way you don't bring your cousin home. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what they used to say. You feel me?
All right, so we're in 2 Chronicles chapter 2, and we're reading verse 28 to 34 in the English. And the sons of Onam were Shammai and Jada, and the sons of Shammai, Nadab, and Abishar, verse 29. And the name of the wife of Abishar was Abihail, and she bare him Ahaban and Moled, verse 34. And the sons of Nadab, Seled and Apaim, but Seled died without children. And the sons of Abiam, Ishai, and the sons of Ishai, Sheshan, and the children of Sheshan, Ahalai. And verse 32, and the sons of Jada, the brother of Shammai, Jether and Jonathan, and Jether died without children. Verse 33, and the sons of Jonathan, Heleth and Zaza. These were the sons of Jeremiah. Verse 34, now Sheshan had sons, but had no sons like it, but daughters. And Sheshan had a servant, an Egyptian, whose name was Jarhab. Also want to add a little bit to what I mentioned. Also want to add too, you got to also remember that with these genealogies, just lost my thoughts. So like, sir, I had it in my mind. I'll come back to it, but there was something else I wanted to point out about these genealogies that's important. I just kind of lost my thoughts. Like, but I'll come back to it. I'll say it.
Go ahead, that's what.
Let's go to 1 Chronicles 2, verse 35 through 41.
1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 35. Or your thun, Shashan, Athawa, or your Rakai, your Badwa, La Asha, with the Lad, Lawa, Athaya, verse 36. Or Aithia, Halayad, Nathan, or Nathan, Hawalayad, Zabad, verse 37. Was Zabad, Hawalayad, Apollon, wa Apollon, Hawalayad, Iwabad, verse 38. Wa Iwabad, Hawalayad, Yahweh, wa Yahweh, Hawalayad, Isaiah, verse 39. Wa Isaiah, Halayad, Ala Aisha, verse 40. Wa Ala Aisha, Halayad, Sasamya, wa Sasamya, Halayad, Shalom. That's not for you,
41, sir.
41 times. Verse 41. Wa Shalom, Hawalayad, Yakomya, Yakomya, or Yakomya, Halayad, Aliyah Shemai. What's it?
So like, now I remember my thought. I remembered it. Also, if you look at these genealogies as well, there's something you'll notice a pattern that a lot of families do. A lot of families, sometimes families will do when they're naming a child, is they'll look at their family history, and they'll name somebody from their family history. Like, well, what was our great grandfather's name? Tyrone. Well, this child's name is Tyrone too. You know, so if you notice something else in these genealogies, you'll notice names that keep repeating themselves. Certain names, you might see a Levi a few times, you might see a Jonathan a few times, because they'll do the same thing that I don't know if people do it more nowadays, but I know more back in the day they would look and say, well, what was his grandfather's name? Well, his grandfather's name was whoever, Michael. Well, okay, well, he's going to be Michael. Well, if you look in the biblical names, some of these genealogies, you'll see certain names that are repeated because they would do the same thing, All right, so let's go ahead and read this in the English. 1 Chronicles 2, chapter 35. We're reading through 41 in the English. And Sheshan gave his daughter to Jarha, his servant's wife, and she bare him Attai. And Attai begot Nathan, and Nathan begot Zabad, verse 36. Verse 37. And Zabad begot Ethelal, and Ethelal begot Obed, verse 38. And Obed begot Jehu. Obed is a name that has repeated itself. Jehu's another one. Jehu begot Azariah. Azariah is another one. A lot of these are repetitious names. Verse 39. And Azariah begot Helez, and Helez begot Asa. Verse 40. And Asa begot Sisamai, and Sisamai begot Shalom. Verse 41. And Shalom begot Jechamiah, and Jechamiah begot Elishama. And that's it. Also, I wanted to point out too, if you'll notice, even in particular tribes, certain names repeat itself. Like I noticed in the tribe of Levi, you'll look down the genealogy, and Levi, appears in that tribe, which would make sense. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to read in We're in 1 Chronicles 2. We're now reading 42 through 48 in the Hebrew. Then we're going to read it in the English.
First Chronicles 2, verse 42. Wabanya, Kalab, Akiyah, Yarakam Allah, Mayashai, Bakarwa, Hawa'a, Abia, Zayak, Wabanya, Marashah, Abiyah, Habarwa, verse 43. Wabanya, Kabarwa, Barak, with a pop. Warakwam, Washamai, verse 44. Washamai, Habaliyah, Rakam, Abiyah, Yarakain, Yarakwam, Habaliyah, Shamya, verse 45. Waban, Shemayah, Ma'aywan, Abiyah, says a war, verse 46. Wa'ayapa, Payalagash, Kalab, Yalada, Karan, Mawataza'a, Gazaz, Wakarwa, it's like Wakaran, Halayah, Gazaz, verse 47, Wabanya, Yakadia, Ragam, Wayawatham, Wagayashan, Wapalat, Wa'ayapa, what's that?
Verse 48.
Verse 48. Falagash, Kalab, Ma'aika, Yalad, Shabar, Wa'a, Tabrakana. That's it.
All right, we're now going to be reading 1 Chronicles chapter 2, 42 through 48 in the English. 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 42. Now the sons of Caleb, and like I said, Caleb is another name that always comes up. Does anybody remember a specific character named Caleb, what he did in the Bible? Does anybody remember who Caleb was? Caleb comes up a lot. Just want to see if anybody remembers. Well, you know, Caleb was one of the people that was with Joshua. Remember, the Most High said that not all the children of Israel would enter into the promised land, especially the older generation. He said, save Joshua and Caleb. Okay, because Caleb was one of the faithful men. When you see Caleb's name coming up again. So I might just point out names that that keep coming up, if that's okay. I'm just pointing out certain names. Now the sons of Caleb, the brother of Jeremiah, were Misha, his firstborn, which was the father of Ziph, and the sons of Marashah, the father of Hebron. And the sons of Hebron's another one, Korah. All right, Korah is another name. Who remembers another character named Korah in the Bible? What did he stand out doing? He did something that stood out. Anybody remember? Well, Korah was, the individual that rebelled against Moses and Aaron. Remember, Korah was Levite. Actually, Korah was, I want to say he was like the nephew of Moses and Aaron. And remember, he wanted the priesthood. He said, you take too much of yourself. Korah and Dathan and Abiram were the ones that, rebelled against Moses. Those are the Levites that rebelled against Moses and Aaron. And, the Most High had to show Aaron's rod had budded to show that the priesthood came to Aaron's line. Okay, Korah's name comes up again, So it's just want to point out certain names that come up a lot. And the sons of Hebron, Korah, and Tappuah, and Rechem, and Shema. Verse 44. And Shema begot Raham, and the father of Jokoam, and Rechem begot Shema. Verse 45. And the sons of Shema was Ma'on, and Ma'on was the father of Bezur. Verse 46. And Ephah, Caleb's concubine, bare Haran, and Moza, and Gazaz, and Haran begot Gazaz. Verse 47. And the sons of Jahdai, Regem, and Jotham, and Geshem, and Pelet, and Epham, and Sha'ab. Verse 48. And Makkah, Caleb's concubine, bare Sheber, and Tirhana. That's it. I also want to point something else out too. You know why these names are important? Because these names also distinguish you from other nations. You're not going to hear a Canaanite name really in the genealogy. Cool. That would just show. You got to think about it. I don't know, certain Russian names like Bumbanovich or something like that. Cool. That would show that don't belong, and that shows that would not belong in the genealogy. Okay, so you got to think of that as well. That another you would be able to, your name anciently would also be able to tell you what tribe or what nation you're from. You wouldn't hear probably Putin that ain't Putin in a genealogy of Israel, because names also distinguish you. Like you could hear somebody's name nowadays and kind of get an idea where they're from. I usually, not saying all the time, it's not 100%. But if you're hearing a name, Mauskowitz, then that's probably somewhere in Russia. Right. That's a Russian name. So you got to think also the names are also important because it would distinguish Shalom. It would also distinguish what nation you're from. Mauskowitz and Brunovich. That's not okay. That's not going to be a Hebrew name or an Israelite name. Okay, so that's another reason why the genealogies were important, because it kept those names, within that family. But if you're going with other nations, then you're going to mix names with other nations. Now you're, I don't know, Yaakov Rabanovich, now because you mix it with other nations. Okay, and now it's confusing. All right, we're now in 2 Chronicles 2, we're reading. First Chronicles. I'm looking at the slide. Yeah. We're in 1 Chronicles 2, and we're in chapter 2, verses 49 through 55.
1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 49. With Elad, Sha'ait, Abiyah, Damanah, Shaba'ah, Abiyah, Makabana, Wa'abya, Kaba'aya, Kaba'aya, Waba, Kala, Akasa, verse 50. Allah, Hayawa, Banya, Kala, Banya, Kawar, Bakawar, Aparatha, Shawabal, Abaya, Horaya, Ya'ariyam, verse 51. Shalama, Abaya, Baya, Lakam, Karat, Abaya, Baya, Gadar, verse 52. Bayahayawa, Baniyam, Ashababal, Abaya, Horiya, Ya'ariyam, Hara'a, Katazaya, Hamanakawa, verse 53. Mamashapakwa, Horiya, Ya'ariyam, Hayatharya, Wahapawafya, Wahashamashya, Wahamasharaya, Ma'allah, Yataza'awa, Hatazaraya, Wahasha, it's like Wahashaf, it's like Wahashaf Aliyah, verse 54, Wanya, Shanama'a, Baya, Bakam, Wanata, Wapafya, Aitarawa, Baya, Yawa'a, Wakatazaya, Hamanakapya, Hatazaraya, verse 55. Umashapakwa, Saparium, Yashabwa, Ya'aibaitazar, Thara'aithyam, Shama'aithyam, Shamakathyam, Hama, Hakuyanyam, Haba'ayam, Makama, Abiyah, Bayah, Rakah. That's it.
All right, let's go through these names. This is 1 Chronicles chapter 2, 49 through 55 in the English. 1 Chronicles 2, chapter 49, 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verse 49. She bare also Sha'af, the father of Maramana, Sheba, the father of Macbanah, and the father of Gibeah, the daughter of Caleb was Aksha. These are verse 50. These were the sons of Caleb, the sons of the son of Hur. Okay, and here we go. We see another name, Hur, in the Bible. Does anybody know? Amos Shalom probably knows. Does anybody know what we're saying? Amos Shalom and Azarias. We're talking about how names keep repeating themselves in these genealogies. And so, does anybody know? Hur was another individual in the scriptures that was stood out. Does anybody know who Hur was? I know you know Amos Shalom. Anybody remember? Amos Shalom, do you remember? Go ahead. There we go. I can't remember the other one too. Okay. Yeah, so Hur, you see these names keep coming up. So Hur was also one of the helpers of Moses. Okay. So like I said, we keep seeing these names come up and they keep appearing in the genealogy. The first one, go back to verse 50. The first one of Ephratah, Shobal, the father of Kirjath-jearim, verse 51. Salma, the father of Bethlehem. Hera, the father of Bethgader, verse 52. And Shobal, the father of Kirjath-jearim, had sons, Horoth, and half of the Manoahites. Verse 53, and the families of Kirjathjearim, the Ithrites, and the Puhites, and Shemathites, and the Mishrayites, and the sons of the Zeraites, and the Ishtalathites. Verse 54, the sons of Salmon, Bethlehem, and the Nephipholites, Ataroth, the house of Joab, and the half of the Methotites, the Zorites, and the families of the scribes, which go from Jabez. So we were talking about this earlier. They even had families of the scribes, and they kept that. Even had that distinction. So people knew their history. Not only did they know the history of their tribes, but the families within the tribes knew their histories, and they knew the trade within the family. That was a trade within the family. And, that would pass on. And, and being a scribe, that was not easy. Okay, that was not easy because you had to not only be able to orally know the story, you had to write it, and everybody knows when you were writing those scrolls, and those scrolls were long. You made one mistake, you had to take it off. You had to do the whole thing over again. They didn't have a eraser like we did. And that's how particular they were with writing. Okay, and I used to emphasize my students like the ancients had to really write, and they had to be serious. Okay, nowadays, people just text and say what they want. But writing was very important because it preserved things. Okay, so even the scribes were preserved and their family. I'm going back, verse 55. The families of the scribes which dwelt at Jabez, the Tirahites, and the Shemayathites, and the Succotites. These were the Kenites that came to Hemath, the father of the house of Rechab. That's it. All right, we're going to our last scripture. We're going to 1 Chronicles. We're going to chapter 3. And we're going to read all the way down through one verse through 7.
1 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1. For Allah, Hayawah, Bunya, Dawayad, Bashar, Dawalad, Dawah, Bakabarwa, Habakawar, Amanun, Laakayane, Laakayanain, Hayazarai, Aliyah, Shanya, Daniyal, La'abayag, La'abayag, Ya'al. It's like La'abayag, Ya'al. Hakaramal, verse 2. Hashalashya, La'abasha, La'abasha, it's like La'abashalwa, La'abashalom, one, Ma'ika, Ba, the Lamya, Malak, Kashawar, Harabayaya, Adanya, Bun, Kagaya, verse 3. Akamayashya, Shematya, La'abayatol, Hashashya, Yatara'ain, La'aigala, Ashathwa, verse 4. Shasha, Nawala, Nawa, Bakabarwa, Wayamalak, Shun, Shabai, Shunyam, Washasha, Kadashya, Washalashya. Washalawash, Shana, Malak, Yerushalayim, verse 5. For Allah, and Maladya, Nawa, for Yerushalayim, Shemaiah, Arabai, Nabab, Shawai, Bob. I'm in your all, verse 6. Where your Bakar, where Allah Yashamai, verse 7. When the God, when the Pod, where your Gayai, and that's it.
All right, this is First Chronicles chapter 3, and we're reading 1 through 7 in the English. Now these were the sons of David, which were born unto him in Hebron. The first one, Amnon, and we know what happened to Amnon. You know the story with Amnon. Amnon had a whole story with him. And Hananoam, the Jezreelites. The second, Daniel. And we notice even one of David's sons' name was Daniel, and David, was before the prophet Daniel. But you see how they keep the names within the family, okay? And if I believe so, Daniel was of the prophet Daniel. I think he was of Judah. I believe so. Yeah, he would have been because Nebuchadnezzar took them. Okay. So you notice that even within the tribe, they preserved names. So before the prophet Daniel, you had one of David's sons whose name was Daniel. The second, Daniel of Abigail, the Carmelitess. Verse 2, the third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Gezer. The fourth, Adonijah, the son of Haggith. Verse 3, the fifth, Shephatiah, and Abital. The sixth, Ithream, by Eglah, his wife. Verse 4, these 6 were born unto him in Hebron, and there he reigned 7 years and 6 months in Jerusalem. He reigned 33 years. Verse 5. These were born unto him in Jerusalem. Shimei, and Shobal, and Nathan, and Solomon. 4. Bathshua, the daughter of Amiel. Verse 6. Ibhar also, and Elishama, and Eliphelet. Verse 7. And Nogah, and Nephen, and Japhia. That's it. So you notice here that we went through genealogies today, and we noticed some things why they were important. One, the Most High separated the genealogies of Israel from the genealogies of the heathen nations, and He actually preserved the names of the genealogies of those heathen nations as well, so to show that you were to be separate from them. Also, the names were preserved so that people could hear, where they came from, what family, what your family trade was, why, what your grandfather, father. Sometimes your genealogy, you can, understand who you are. Like, oh, okay. Because sometimes you'll have a trait about you, and you look at your family genealogy, you're like, oh, okay. Sometimes, some craziness, like, oh, my grandfather had this same temper, but, it was just important to give you an idea. And also, the genealogy is more important because it showed the identity of who the Israelites were through the names. Like I said, you wouldn't see any Russian names in those genealogies. Okay, like I said, you wouldn't see Mauskowitz in there. People, you hear somebody's name, or nowadays maybe more last name, you kind of get an idea, or even first name, right, what region they're from. You're like, okay, that person's probably from Turkey, Russia, China, probably from, Saudi Arabia. Well, it's the same thing. And so these genealogies were very important, and it just, preserved the family history in Israel. All right? All right, but just the people up here, Imani.
Hold on a sec. So I won't let something from there. My bad, Slack.
La Yashala. Come. Amadium, up and Yah, Hakodam, which means rise and face the east. This is for everybody. 1, 2, 3. We're going to do the Lord's Prayer in Hebrew and then in the English. The Lord's Prayer, up and now, Shabbat Shemayim,
Shabbat Shemayim,
Kudah,
Hayah,
Shemkah,
Shemkah,
Yahweh, Malach Wakah,
Laba'ah,
Batazaka,
Hayah,
Aisha, Ba'aratazah,
Kawah,
Hayah, Shemayim,
Lathana, Lakum, Call, Yawam,
Wasalakana, Kabawakana, Wasalakana, Kabawakana, Wala'ah, Aina, Badasai one, a ball, and the Shina, Mayan, Right, Piyah, Nakah, Amalakwa, Maha'ala, Mahatapara, Aman,
in the English, our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. In earth. As it is in heaven. Give us this day. Our daily bread. And forgive us our debts. As we forgive our debtors. Lead us not. To temptation. But deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom. And the power. And the glory. Forever. So be it. Psalm which means turn. Sisters, Yeshaviah. Men of Israel, gird up thy loins and prepare to salute the Torah. Yahweh Bashem Yashab Rakya. Slack, sir. Would you mind turning the camera? Slack. How about Shem Yashab Rakya?
Yahweh Hashem Yahushua Brakya.
This concludes the service.
Men of Israel, we're going to give a one courtesy salute to the teacher. Men of Israel, Manu Shabbat, Imani, Barak, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua Brakatah,
Yahweh Bashem Yashab Rakatham.
Yadimatah, Sah, sisters, Imani, which means stand. Men of Israel, we're going to give a one courtesy salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, Manu Shabbat, Imani, Barak, Yahweh Shema, Lathan Bashem Yahushua. Yadimatah, class dismissed.